Hey, welcome. I'm Susie Lusk with the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we welcome you again to the our Manufacturing Roadshow of 2021. This was going to be in Cleveland, Tennessee, but we changed it to virtual, and we really appreciate you all joining on with us this morning. We have two speakers today, one from UL, and of course, Mary Beth Hudson with Peak Performance, and we'll talk about the Smart Factory. But I would love to introduce our first speaker today, Gary Neff. Gary Neff is Program Manager with UL Supply Chain Advisory and Audits. Gary has been with UL for over 25 years, and in his current role, he supports the establishment of an expanded service for UL customers by providing management system solutions, supply chain risk assessments, customer product quality assurance audits, and information security assessments. Gary will be speaking with you all today about the supply chain risks and complexities that are currently impacting manufacturers. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you very much, Susie, and it's a pleasure to join the group. I guess I'll share my screen. Oops. Oh. And forgive me, we were talking, I'm a little bit new to Zoom.
Sure. Gary, do you see the green arrow? It should be in the middle of your Zoom screen at the bottom. There's a green arrow, and if you click that up, you should be able to select your screen. Perfect.
Okay, and slideshow. How are we doing with can you see my screen?
Yes, it looks like it's in the presenter view. So if you can hit those three dots and hide presenter view, that would be great.
Okay, three dots and hide presenter view.
Yes.
I'm looking for the three dots.
Oh, you were just on it. It's those icons in the middle below the slide, the far right one.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. Perfect. Hide presenter view.
Thank you so much for your help and patience. Let's see. Apologize. And can you see my screen now?
It's back to the original screen. Can you resume slideshow there under the transitions tab?
I'm sorry.
You're fine, Gary. We've all been here, so you're doing great.
Technical difficulties.
You may have to try hitting escape and see if it'll take you fully back out to hit the X next to that slideshow. And then there's an arrow down, hit that little X. Okay, now start from beginning. Is it black on your side, Gary, just the black screen?
It's black on my side, yes.
Okay, let's hit escape again, and then let's close the file and reopen it and see if we can, oh, there we go.
Wow. Okay, escaping worked. I apologize. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. First of all, as Susie indicated, I've worked for Underwriters Laboratories. I'm based in Ohio. I've been, but I do report to our UL headquarters out of Northbrook, Illinois. I am an auditor at heart. I started with UL 25 years ago because I was a quality manager trying to implement management systems and I was and automotive requirements, the QS 9000 requirements, and was a little bit frustrated, having difficulty implementing systems. So I said, I would really like to go out and benchmark other companies to see how they implement their management systems. And I told my wife, I said, I'll do this auditing gig for about 3 years. Well, that was over 25 years ago. So I had the unique opportunity to join a group. UL has recently formed a group within under called Supply Chain. And it's made up of various business units within supply chain. And my my role is to provide supply chain assessments and advisory services to our clients. So I basically coordinate, and right now I'm actively coordinating assessments in China, as you might expect, because the pandemic has limited companies' abilities to actually conduct their assessments themselves. So that's kept me pretty busy. So I did receive a lot of questions. Questions around supply chain disruption. As no surprise, I'm getting a lot of input from manufacturers and our clients about their inability to obtain components. My main goal for today was to talk about supply chain risk. Of course, supply chain disruption is part of supply chain risk, and I certainly will. I'll talk about. I've got some data on supply chain disruption to address some of the questions that you have. So what I would like to do is just share briefly some data with you. Actually, UL had conducted in coordination with Bloomberg, we conducted a survey of manufacturers, senior executives, senior managers within key industry sectors to target primary decision makers and team makers with oversight of supply chain transparency and practices. 28% of the respondents came from the US, 28% from Europe, 29% from Asia, and about 15% from Latin America. I think there were approximately 380 respondents. And this is an extract from a paper that is available. It's a research paper on our ul.com website under resources. So you can go to our website and either keyword resources, and you can, this article will be posted, a research paper actually on our site. So when we talk about the supply chain risk, from the survey that was performed, some of the reasons why manufacturing leaders felt that what were some of the key contributors for supply chain complexity. The first was the cost and efficiency pressures, the cost of new technology, the cost of products, the cost of components and materials. So globalization certainly, and I won't go through all of them, I'll just hit on the top 4 or 5. Globalization was certainly a key factor. Regulatory trends, and that's UL. You know, when I look at that, I'm very aware of some of the changes in regulatory compliance. You know, whether it's the Middle East or changes in Asia and the moves across manufacturers from China to Vietnam to Thailand to Malaysia. There are changes in regulatory trends as well, and new standards and new adopting standards. And of course, the growth in the number of suppliers globally is certainly a factor. And you can see from, you know, the perceived complexity by region, that North America, it's about even that through North America, Europe, and Asia, the supply chain complexity is very complex. The ratings of very complex to somewhat complex are almost the same. Europe is slightly less. Latin America, significantly more complex. And some of the key factors that fuel supply chain complexity are faster lead times, quick turnaround times, made to order manufacturing. In fact, that's some of the key areas where our assessments are being performed in Asia, because products are being manufactured in Asia. They're being labeled with the company's brand, and shipped to distribution right away, and of course available through order online. And online orders have really increased for all kinds of products, since 2019 and the advent of the pandemic. Precise delivery expectations is another, and I'll talk about a little bit about logistics and the impact on supply chain disruption. Globalization, of course, where there's greater reach of manufacturers for all types of products throughout the globe, both in distribution and in suppliers, increases complexity. And many companies have expanded their product offerings as well. So hurdles to supply chain transparency and reducing risk. Some of the top contributors are the cost of new technology. We talked a little bit about that. Network security, being able to share data, particularly in other areas of the world. China is adopting a personal data security platform, much like the GDPR requirements in Europe. So network security has become a real issue. Penetration testing of networks and is become a lot more active, as I see it, across the globe. Product quality remains, in the top three for leaders and manufacturers to understand what's going on, in the supply chain, and how can we reduce risk. Product quality remains one of the top hurdles, to supply chain transparency and reducing risk. And of course, identifying what those issues are to solve. Where do we focus in our supply chain? What's important to us as manufacturers? Really, the supply chain risk assessment really needs, and from my view, needs to really become part of the C-suite, upper management's regular review, along with ROI and financial performance of an organization. Supply chain risk assessment really needs to become part of that regular review and strategy. So from the survey that was performed and the research paper done through UL, I was kind of pleasantly surprised from a quality auditor point of view that the respondents felt that there needs to be increased visibility. The larger percentage of the survey respondents said their perception needs to be an increased visibility of product quality and material issues within the supply chain. Unplanned IT communication outages, there's a need for greater a greater visibility into the supply chain relative to, network security, as was previously discussed. And of course, manpower and resources has really become, human resources has really become a major issue throughout the pandemic in all types of service industries that support manufacturing, from shipping, logistics to line workers to even the people that support transportation, public transportation, and the ability for workers to get to work and things like that. Human loss of talent and skills has really been elevated. And this research paper was completed in the end of 2019, really prior to the real impact of the pandemic. So what really is becoming more and more important, supply chain assessments, the ability to conduct on-site assessments, and a lot of large companies have that type of visibility. They've got the resources and the organizational structure and systems in place to have, ongoing supply chain monitoring and assessments of their suppliers. We're finding that mid-sized companies don't necessarily have that level of resource. And so more and more companies are looking for, particularly with the pandemic, looking for more data solutions. And while I'm no expert, in supply chain management, we do have a team at UL who are working on the tools and have the resources, whether it's in, chemical, retail, materials, that can support our customers in providing them with data tools for managing their supply chain. Not all of it, because this supply chain is broken into, various elements, and supply chain structure is different for various industries and more complex. And I just put this slide in as an example of the kind of data, dashboard data, that is really evolving within the supply chain, call it the supply chain support industry. There are companies now out there who are using AI and other types of intelligence and actually input directly from suppliers to gauge those types of factors that are important to manufacturers, including things like lead time, material supplies and inventory, things that are measurable and tracked in real time are becoming more of an important factor for manufacturers with global supply chains. So I wanted to just just briefly provide a contact. As I said, I work within a group called Supply Chain. My specialty is providing audit services and advisory services to our customers, but we do have a whole team of experts within our supply chain group that may be able to assist and do assist our clients with their supply chain needs. So just wanted to wrap with that. I do have, I did receive questions mostly focused around supply chain disruption. And let me just take a couple of minutes to hit on some of the major factors that are impacting supply chains. And so how am I doing on time, Susie? Doing okay?
Perfect. Yes, you could answer that. And if anyone else has another question, you could pop that in the chat and we'll get that to Gary as well.
Okay, cool. Had like 3 or 4 questions on kind of the leading factors of supply chain disruption and do we think that the pandemic is the major contributor to current disruptions? First of all, I'm getting a lot of questions from UL clients, from our field engineers who conduct regular product safety inspections. I'm getting a lot of input from them and requests from our clients on how we can help them with sourcing components. And unfortunately, you know, as a national recognized test laboratory, we can't tell manufacturers what components or where they should source their components. However, we do have data. We do have a data resource called Product IQ that is available through ul.com. That is a very deep data resource that is searchable by materials, by component types, that can provide an excellent resource for companies looking for alternate sources. And really, it's up to the organization using that information to decide, you know, for a particular component, whether those components meet certain requirements. But it is a resource for manufacturers to seek alternative sources for supply. And again, that's called the UL Product IQ. And I mostly tell our field engineers to work with our manufacturers and helping them, guide them to that resource so that they can, you know, perhaps find another source. And that's been particularly key during the pandemic. That has been, you know, directly impacted. So, but you'd be surprised. According to Resolink, they're a corporation who monitors supply chain performance. They have, their data comes from more than 300,000 suppliers. It consists of 620,000 sites and more than 3 million parts and materials purchased by Resolink customers. They maintain a 24/7 data reporting driven by AI. And they've reported that of the top 5 supply chain disruptions to impact in the first half of 2021, they are factory fires, number 1, mergers and acquisitions, number 2, business sales, factory disruptions, and leadership transitions. Now, behind all of that, of course, is the impact of the pandemic and the ripple effect that it has had. Companies have sought to buy suppliers to corner the market on certain materials so that they can address their own disruption, which has created other ripple effects. So, you know, while not directly attributed to the pandemic certainly has had impacts on the factory fires. And they've said that factory fires has been up 150% from in 2021 to 2020. Some of that contributed to the fact that they don't have adequate staffing. They have new people running processes and operations that aren't necessarily skilled. They haven't done the preventative work or the preventative maintenance perhaps that they should have because of resource restrictions due to the pandemic. So factory fires has been one of the key disruptors, number 1 disruptor across the globe. That to me was somewhat surprising. The other major disruption is logistics, as we talked about earlier. Of course, the pandemic has affected that, but there is some really kind of very surprising data about logistics. Certainly, you know, the disruption began with the pandemic, but it's now being made worse by the strength of the economic rebound. And that economic rebound, of course, has been predominant in the US, but it has been global as well. So today, 42% of the containers arriving in the US come from China, which is the home of 7 of the largest container ports. And the ports are clogged up. One of the impacts of the pandemic has been that the staffing at the ports, truck drivers, lift operators, crane operators, people that move the materials, from the in the containers, they're short on those resources. Then COVID did force a partial shutdown of one of the largest ports in China, and then China's second largest container port, a major U.S. railway suspended all container movement from the U.S. West Coast, owing to a bloated backlog in Chicago. So logistics has been a major issue. Another impact as well, as companies are moving their suppliers, and I've seen this, I've got new supplier assessments being conducted in Vietnam and Thailand that I'm unable to perform at the moment because factories in Vietnam have stopped working because the Vietnamese army is enforcing a lockdown because of the COVID surge. So our field auditors are not able to really leave their homes or travel. Fully loaded container ships, as you saw in the news, when we had the stuck ship in the canal, the Suez Canal, that created an entire backlog. Fully loaded container ships are being forced to wait for berth spaces at anchorages off the U.S. ports, Los Angeles, as well as several other ports in North America, Asia, and Europe. 49 container ships were idled at anchor off Los Angeles Beach as of August 29th, the most ever, and up from just 9 on June 18th. So that is a current major disruption to supply chain, and that has impacted across all industries. And I know that there are probably a lot of automotive related manufacturers represented by the Tennessee Manufacturers Association. And one of the questions was, well, what industries? It really is impacting all industries, from retail to food to chemical through automotive. Automotive is probably one of the most complex. And of course, the semiconductor disruption somewhat contributed to the pandemic, but not all of the disruption contributed to the pandemic. For instance, Taiwan has a major semiconductor manufacturing operation. They've had a drought in Taiwan. The availability of water has impacted their operations. So there are other factors at play. It seems like it's been a myriad of factors that have come into play regarding global supply chain reductions or constraints and disruption. So with that, I will also just say too, and I know that many of the manufacturers on this call are probably impacted by that. Just one last point, plastics. The availability of plastics and the chemicals that make plastics has been majorly impacted by several events, just even here in the US. The winter in Texas shut down many operations. And there have been a couple of major fires in Louisiana at chemical processing plants that have impacted the availability of those chemicals that support the manufacturing of plastics, as well as now the hurricane that just went through will cause ongoing disruptions. Many experts feel that those disruptions will continue into 2022 and possibly even into 2023. That's the pessimistic view. I think most are saying that this will ease. In fact, the Biden administration has formed a task force to focus on supply chain disruptions to try to help U.S. manufacturers address it, and specifically looking at the semiconductor industry as well. So hopefully that gives you sort of answers some of those questions that came up regarding disruption. And I think that's about all the data that I can present to you at this early stage in the morning. And I guess I'll turn it over for questions. Sorry if I took a little longer. I can go on and on. It's a very deep subject.
I don't see any in the chat box. Bradley, did you have additional questions?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. I think you've covered everything, Gary. Thank you.
Certainly, my pleasure.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Gary, for that information. I will kick it back over to our president, Bradley Jackson, to introduce Mary Beth Hudson.
All right. Thank you. And Carolyn, I think you may have to help me with my video to start it.
I'm sure I'll work on that right now.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank everyone again for joining us. And I do want to thank our sponsor also, LBMC. Thank you for your support over the years for the roadshow. I know this year, thank you all for your patience. You know, we're hopeful we would have these in person, but unfortunately it's not working out that way. So thank you all for your patience for us to be able to go virtual for all these. Before I introduce Mary Beth Hudson, who we're thrilled to have with us today, I do want to talk a little bit about manufacturing in Tennessee. You know, the Roadshow events primarily are really to kick off Manufacturing Month and celebrate manufacturing in Tennessee. So manufacturers are tremendous contributors to Tennessee's economy and produce about 15% of our total output across the state. They employ about 11% of the total workforce. Of course, that includes government. When you break it down just by private sector, it's a much larger share. The total number of manufacturing employees is about 330,000 Tennesseans that are employed in over 5,200 manufacturing firms. So there's strong manufacturing presence all across our great state. Perhaps most importantly, and I know what us as manufacturers like to talk about, is the average annual compensation for manufacturing when you compare it to a number of other fields, and it's over $71,000. When you look at other non-farm employment, that's around $45,000. So manufacturing are good jobs. They pay better than a number of other jobs. Also in Tennessee, when you look at the major sectors of manufacturing, motor vehicle and parts come in as the largest, over $10 billion. Next are food, beverage, and tobacco products operations coming in second. Chemical manufacturing comes in at third. Fabricated metals, electrical equipment, machinery, miscellaneous goods kind of come in and finish the list off. When we look at job growth of manufacturing, the data that we've seen, pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing has actually been growing at over 12% over the last year. Coming in second has been navigational, measuring, electromedical, and control instruments manufacturing. So we've heard a lot about the medical industry sector in Tennessee and its growth, especially around the Memphis area. And then motor vehicle manufacturing comes in third at around almost 7% growth there. The other sectors that fall under that are beverage manufacturing, motor vehicle parts, wood, and food processing, and general purpose machinery processing. So it's always good to have information and data about Tennessee, and we look forward to you all joining us with our future road shows. And also, I don't know if Mary Beth, if you're going to announce the October 1st event, but part of our manufacturing roadshows, we work to have relevant topics Of course, today we covered supply chain, but also, automation and technology. And that's what Mary Beth Hudson is going to talk about. It's a major theme for manufacturers. And we're really proud at the launch of the Smart Factory Institute. So Mary Beth serves as Executive Director of the Smart Factory Institute in Chattanooga. Today, she's going to talk about manufacturing trends in Southeast United States, Industry 4.0, and really its impact on U.S. manufacturers. She has over 32 years of experience. She's certainly no stranger to us, has been involved with the Chamber Manufacturers Association for a number of years. Her experience in the chemical industry, she's managed supply chains, production, engineering, EHS, HR, sales, and a number of other functions. Prior to joining Smart Factory, y'all may remember she was Vice President of Blocker Chemical Polysilicon Division and site manager at their Charleston, Tennessee facility. Also, she was recently inducted into the University of Kentucky College of Engineering Hall of Distinction in 2019. Mary Beth, congratulations, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. And I think at this point, I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. Okay, so can everyone see this okay and hear me okay?
Mary Beth, we can hear you. I think, do you have two screens? Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you. And
Mary
thank
Beth,
you.
sorry, let me stop you real quick. You're on presenter view also. We can see, I think, your
My screen. Okay.
second screen. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw Denise about to jump in too.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Share screen. There we go. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, that's great.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining early in the morning, although I know as manufacturers, this is normal. There we go. So as Bradley introduced, I'm Mary Beth Hudson, and I am the Executive Director of the Smart Factory Institute. Smart Factory Institute is a public-private partnership operated by Peak Performance Incorporated. So Peak Performance is a development and operational excellence company helping manufacturers with solutions for people and processes. We're headquartered at the Volkswagen Institute in Chattanooga. And as Bradley said, today I'm going to talk about the Smart Factory Institute and really how it got started. So I'll touch on manufacturing in the Southeast United States, Industry 4.0, and really how this led to the development of the Smart Factory Institute in Chattanooga. So one of the things that, as Bradley mentioned, he talked about some of the statistics of manufacturing in Tennessee. The Site Selection Group annually ranks states that are best for manufacturing. And this analysis focuses on high-level state trends. It's really a good metric to use for evaluating where manufacturing investment should be located. And you can easily see that the dark green states are the best states for manufacturing. And you see that Tennessee and the Southeast region is really ranked highest in the nation for manufacturing. When Site Selection Group has looked at the states, some of the things that are most important to manufacturers, and it's what we heard just earlier, it's a qualified workforce is top priority, and that's closely followed by having a good supply chain network. Other important factors are business environment, regulatory climate, utilities and infrastructure, real estate, and other economic incentives. What you see here is South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia are among the top ranked states. And you also see that there's not one state that's best in every category, but by not having any deficiencies in any category, the whole region is really good for manufacturing investment. And as we know, manufacturing is very, very important to the U.S. economy. We heard about Tennessee, but in the entire U.S. economy, manufacturing is 10.9% of the annual output in the economy, and it employs 8.3% of the workforce with an average compensation of $88,000 a year. It's 2.3 trillion value added to the economy. And at that level, it's actually would be the 8th largest economy in the world, higher than Italy, Brazil, Canada, Russia, and South Korea. So again, manufacturing drives the US economy with 1.4 billion in exports in 2019. And it's grown an average of 5% a year from 1.8 to $2.3 trillion. And this trend is expected to continue. And actually, with some of the supply chain issues that were exposed during COVID and even beyond, it may even accelerate as manufacturers start looking at bringing back more manufacturing into the United States and not relying on that international trade as much. So there are, with all of this growth, it's projected that there will be over 4 million manufacturing jobs needed in the next decade. But with some of the challenges with having a skilled workforce, it's expected that half of these jobs will be unfilled if something isn't done about the gap. And manufacturers desperately need a pipeline of skilled workers and also need productivity gains by adopting smart factory technology to meet these increases in manufacturing. With over 98% of manufacturers being small and mid-sized businesses, many of them have limited resources to identify the technology that's necessary as they create their Industry 4.0 roadmaps. And this has led to the need for the Smart Factory Institute. What we're planning to do is provide American manufacturers with connections, collaborative relationships, and training certifications for improving manufacturing processes. So we've talked a little bit about Industry 4.0. It's the fourth industrial revolution since the late 1700s. It's an all-encompassing term referring to the way companies, data, and automation are evolving and coming together to change the way work happens, and in particular, how it's impacting manufacturing. The industrial revolutions of the past were essentially about the advancement of technology, but in Industry 4.0, we're taking technology to the next evolution by blurring the lines between the digital and the physical worlds. It's more about the evolution of tech and its impact on the way we do our work. it can help reduce the strain from many of the challenges that industry currently faces, especially with the workforce and even some of the planning and supply chain challenges. Also, customers are demanding new products faster, cheaper, and they're also asking that they use less resources than in the past. So Industry 4.0 can help increase efficiency and productivity while at the same time guaranteeing a high and high-end product quality. An example could be 3D printing. 3D printing can allow a short run, quick turnaround, and a production of a highly customized item for a customer without having to retool an entire production line. So some of the examples of this technology is systems integration, cloud-based computing, collaborative robots, additive manufacturing, augmented and virtual reality, big data and analytics, and cyber physical systems. These are all technologies that manufacturers are and will adopt in developing their Industry 4.0 roadmaps. So all manufacturers recognize the importance of Industry 4.0. In surveys of Tennessee manufacturers in 2019, they indicated an awareness of the new technology, and most manufacturers, though, were still evaluating on how to adopt this technology. However, even though they're still evaluating, the strong majority are expecting to invest in smart factory technology in the near future. When asked about applications of emerging technology, over half of the uses involved IT architecture with systems integration and cloud-based computing and storage being the largest categories. This IT architecture helps support the integration of new technology to optimize operations. So this is really the first step in adopting the Industry 4.0. When asked about the challenges in adopting this new technology, manufacturers listed the largest barrier as the availability of a skilled workforce, but it's another very important component of the challenge is concerns about the cost, and also making sure that investments are the right technology and that it's done correctly the first time. Again, over 98% of manufacturers are small and medium-sized companies. Many of these have limited in-house resources to evaluate and develop an Industry 4.0 roadmap. These manufacturers surveyed were very interested in having conferences and networking sessions to be able to learn best practices from their peers in how to implement Industry 4.0 plans. So the vision of the Smart Factory Institute is to help manufacturers adopt the newest Industry 4.0 technology to improve their production processes and also ensure a skilled workforce. The Smart Factory Institute is public-private partnership operated by Peak Performance, and we're located at the Volkswagen Academy. What we will do is facilitate intensive networking between suppliers, academia, and users of key technology to optimize production processes, leading the economic competitiveness of business and industry in the region. The Smart Factory Institute is based on a proven model of Deutsche Messe academies. We're part of the global network of the Deutsche Messe academies in Germany, China, and South Africa. Deutsche Messe started with exhibitions and trade shows over 70 years ago at the headquarters in Hanover, Germany. And one of the things that they realized about 10 years ago is a need to showcase technology real year-round via conferences and seminars. So the purpose is to have these workshops, conferences, and seminars to provide a platform to share the technology with the end users and enable the transfer of this knowledge. Having the Smart Factory Institute inside the Volkswagen Academy will allow all manufacturers the opportunity to experience and learn of the new innovative technologies to help ease the implementation of technological advancements in the workplace. What we're doing is we're building on the existing robotic equipment and PLCs that are located in the automation center and adding to that with additional technology partners where they will install their equipment to provide more options for manufacturers to evaluate what the options are for adoption in their operations. The Institute will be used as a venue for the demonstrations, networking events, conferences, workshops, and training courses. It will allow manufacturers to collaborate with technology providers and really come up with the best operations for their manufacturing operations. Another unique feature of the Smart Factory Institute is our partnership with the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga's Industrial Organizational Psychology Master's Degree Program. It's one of the longest running and most well-respected programs in the nation. IO psychology is the scientific study of how people function within work organizations. Right now, what we're seeing is we have a very transient workforce. We're having still a lot of baby boomer retirements. We're having a lot of people changing jobs and moving from one company to another. What this is doing is it's putting a big strain on being able to train our workforce. Companies are having to promote people faster and move people into positions faster, whether it be through promotions or from hiring from the outside. And manufacturers have requested help in developing these teams. The old way of training isn't going to work anymore. We need to be faster and more efficient, more effective. So working with the UTC IO Psychology Group, they are helping to develop best practices to have faster, more effective training. So Smart Factory Institute is just starting up. Bradley mentioned our ribbon cutting October 1st. We are on track for being fully operational in the first part of next year. And again, we have the Smart Factory Institute ribbon cutting ceremony October 1st, and everyone can join us virtually. We will be live streaming the event on the Peak Performance website as well as via Mix 104. And we also have, after that, coming up October 21st, our Peak Performance Symposium. This is the 7th annual Peak Symposium, and it's for manufacturers by manufacturers. And we will be taking a deeper dive into workforce development, supply chain, and technology advancements as we move our manufacturing into the next generation of Industry 4.0. Some other events that we are planning for next year are a robotics conference in February, a workshop on batteries and innovations for electronic vehicles in April, a Smart Solutions Expo in August, the next Peak Performance Symposium in October, and then really a report out on smart technology workforce impact from UTC's IO Psychology department. And with that, I thank you all for the opportunity to speak and ask if there are any questions.
Mary Beth, this is Carolyn with the chamber. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I had 2 questions come in. One of them you did answer, but just wanted to touch on that. You spoke to how technology suppliers, manufacturers, and educators will be connected through the Smart Factory, which is just amazing to hear. And then a second question under that, like I said, you did answer that one. How will the smart technology be displayed or demonstrated? Can you just go back over that kind of as one last touch point for us?
Yes, yes. So our technology partners, these are the suppliers, the manufacturers of this smart technology, will actually install their equipment at the Smart Factory Institute, and it will be on display 365 days a year, and it will be available to see hands-on, where manufacturers can interact with it hands-on to see how it works, to be able to get an idea of how it could be implemented in their operations.
Awesome, thank you. And then is your presentation able to be shared? We did get that ask as well.
Yeah, if someone would contact me, I would be glad to talk to them about sharing this.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I guess that, Mary Beth, thank you so much. And Peak Performance, you all's work with the Smart Factory. We look forward to working with you all and helping to promote and grow and inform manufacturers about the opportunities there at the Smart Factory. In terms of our next meeting, Susie and Carolyn, I believe it will be October the 5th in Memphis, Tennessee at the Ag Expo Center. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. October 5th at the Agri Center.
Okay, and we'll be announcing topics for that meeting. I believe transportation, logistics, and a few others. Also, Mary Beth, we probably would like for you to also talk about the Smart Factory as well to the West Tennessee crowd. So thank you all for joining us again. We apologize that we're not able to see each other in person. Hopefully next year we'll be able to. But thanks for joining us virtually, and we will see you soon.